Hey, I'm Mike with My Car Shop. Today we're going to be working on the 26 Oakland. We're going to be doing some prep work for the valve train to start putting the new cam into the engine. So let's get into it. Let's take 30 seconds and get an overview of all the projects we've got going here with our show intro, and I'll meet you on the other side, all right?
Working out of a 100-year-old refurbished barn, bringing 35 years of experience to projects considered beyond repair. Vision, creativity, and problem solving are essential tools in this place. Watch as we transform junk into polished metal miracles. This is My Car's Shop.
Okay, so here we are with the 26 Oakland, and as I mentioned in the intro, we're going to be doing some prep work for installing the cam and putting the valves and everything back in the engine. So I wanted to come over here to the car and kind of show you what we're doing and why we're doing it. We've talked a lot about what's going to be happening. Well, today we're actually starting to make that happen, so let's get into it. Okay, so here we are looking at the engine, and we've got the cam out, and the valve train is out, the lifters are out, the head is off, all of the valves are out of the engine. And right now what we're going to be doing is cleaning up the lifter assemblies. There's two units that bolt in here. They go right in here, and we're going to be getting those cleaned up, and I'm going to be taking all of the adjustment out of the lifters so that we can easily assemble things. One of the things about these engines that is unique is this whole cylinder assembly actually bolts off. There's bolts right down here, and you can actually take the whole top end of this engine off. I chose not to do that because of two reasons. One, I don't want to disturb the gaskets down in there at this point. Number two, I don't want to mess with the cylinders themselves. It would make it a lot easier to put the valve train in, but I chose not to do that. And made a little more work for myself, but I think overall this was the way to go. So kind of a unique feature on this 26 Oakland. One of the things that I was very happy with is that I was able to pick up a set of valves for this. These valves are absolutely phenomenal. The valves in the engine were really bad, and in fact that's probably why the car was parked. So I was able to pick up a camshaft because the cam in this was rusty, and I was able to pick up 6 valves for it as well. Most of the exhaust valves in this engine were shot. Some of them definitely were not working. They were burnt, and when we did some compression testing on this engine, it had 2 cylinders that were completely zero compression. That wasn't from sitting all of these years. The car's been parked for 75 years, but it was because they were burned, and we think this is one of the reasons why the car was parked in 1946. So as you can see, here are the valves, and we're just replacing half of those. What I'm going to do, the intake and exhaust valves are the same from what the guys are telling me, and so I'm going to pick the best 6 of these valves and use them for intake valves and put the 6 new valves in the exhaust holes, because the exhaust valves take a much harder beating than intake valves do. So my plan today, we need to clean these up. I'm just going to soak them in some kerosene. But what I plan to do today is just take these adjusters and run these lifters all the way back down. That's going to give me, you can see the gap here, about 1/4 of an inch of more clearance for putting the valves and the valve springs in. It's a little bit of a bugger doing it this way, but I think it's the way to go. I may end up pulling the intake and exhaust off to make it a lot easier, but we were able to get it out of there, and I'm pretty sure we're going to be able to get it back in there. As I mentioned, the cam is probably done today. The machine shop said they should have it finished today, so I hope to be picking that up sometime today. And I want to have things ready and prepped ahead of time so that when my dad can come out and he and I can start assembling the engine together again. Okay, I apologize for the little bit of noise there. I'm standing right in front of the heater because I don't want to fire the furnace up today and take time to heat the whole shop up for just doing this project. So many times I will just do that. So my main objective here today, as I mentioned, is just to get these lifters adjusted up or down and give myself more room in the valve train so that I can put this together. I need to slide that nut up. More room in the valve train so that we can have lots of clearance to put the valves in. Getting those little keepers in is really a bugger. They're a little C-clip type of keeper, and like I said, they're a bugger to do. It would be much easier, obviously, to assemble the whole thing with the top hand of the engine off, but I don't want to do that, as I mentioned, so I'm making more work for myself, and I know that. But we've toyed with just pulling the engine on the car, and we still may end up doing that because the clutch is stuck. But really, we want to do what we're doing because we want to make sure the engine runs good and that it doesn't need a bunch of other work that we're not aware of. So it also helps if you turn these the right way. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. You would think after 40 plus years of working on cars I would know that. Anyway, so we don't want to pull the engine yet if we don't have to. I've talked to a couple guys who know these cars very well, and they suggested that there's a couple ways I may be able to break that clutch loose. So I'm pretty sure it's stuck. We tried cranking it in gear, and the motor won't turn. So we know we have an issue there. So that's definitely going to be a concern, not a major concern. Certainly not the first time I've had to deal with that on old cars, but you know, still, it's a thing. Oops, do this the right way and you won't have problems. It's my little wee brain sometimes doesn't do so well dealing with which way I have to turn things. Like I said, 40 years experience, you think I would, but you know, sometimes you just got to think about things. So I don't intend to have you watching me doing you know, every one of these. I'm going to put it on motion capture here. And one of the reasons why I'm sharing intricate details, well, there's a couple of reasons. One of the reasons is because sharing how much time it takes to do things like this is important for people who have no comprehension. We got some gunk in there or something. The little challenges of doing a job like this. Another reason is we have a large members, not a large members, a bunch of people in the family who are following this project as I'm working on it. It's a way they can participate. We live quite a distance apart. That one doesn't want to go up. I'm not going to mess with it. I think it'll be all right. We live a large distance, or a long distance apart, and you know, we normally couldn't be together anyway, but especially this year with COVID, it's impossible. And so we thought this was the best way to share working on the project and keep everybody in the family included in Great Grandpa's car as I'm putting it back together and getting it to be back on the road here in the next year or so. And so that's another reason why I share stuff like this. So just a lot of reasons, but again, not everybody knows how to do this stuff. And so, you know, having the ability through technology to share it and let people see what's involved and so forth and how long it takes. I probably go into a lot more detail on all the projects that I do than most channels do. Some of you might find that boring, as I said, but for people who don't know how it is or how it works, they're learning a lot. So you know, it's just for the entertainment value and the educational value. And as I always say on my channel, it's not so much about what I'm doing. It's about sharing the experience of it. And then the other thing is, I'm not saying that I do everything right. I'm sharing how I do things. There's a lot of opinions out there, and there's a lot of elitism in the auto industry. I mean, or in the auto hobby. Don't get me wrong, car guys are some of the best people on the planet. But I ran into it yesterday online on a thread, and people, you know, beating on newbies about how things should be done. And I'm like, you know, I've never kind of followed those rules. You want things that are mechanically correct, but there's multiple ways to do things and things that will work that aren't necessarily what the experts would recommend. So that's part of the reason for my channel as well. So I'm just sitting here blabbing away, and you get to listen to me. And when this one's done, I'm going to do the next one on time lapse, and then we'll be done with that, and then we'll talk about the next steps. Okay, so you can see now we've got these nuts run up to the head of the bolt, and the bolts run down in, and that bought us about 1/4 of an inch. That will give us a lot more room when we're putting those valves in and having to compress the valve springs and slide those keepers in. That's going to be a tedious job, as I said, but hopefully we're going to be doing that soon. So the next step now, what I want to do is I want to take and just soak these in kerosene. And while it's not necessarily on this engine, on a modern engine you have to make sure that the lifters go right back on the same cam lobes. That's not really quite as necessary on these older cars, but I'm still being very careful to make sure that they go back in the right hole. Now I am using a different camshaft, so does it matter? No, not at all. But it's just a habit of over 40 years of making sure that things go back in exactly the same way they're supposed to, like on main bearings, rod caps, lifters on cams, all that stuff. It's just so ingrained in me. I would not be able to sleep at night thinking that I may have put these things in the wrong order. So I know that's ridiculous, but it's a habit of 40 years, and I'm not about to change it now. Okay, so I shifted gears here, realizing I don't have a container right now that's big enough to soak these in. So I went over and got one of my little coffee cans, and I started scrubbing this, and the sludge is just so thick in here after 100 years or 95 years that I decided to go ahead and just do a lot of this by hand with a brush. It's just really goopy, and you can see, like down in here, there's just so much goop and slime and so forth. So breaking that loose by hand first probably makes the most sense, trying to get that stuff cleaned out of there as best as I can. So this end is pretty good. So we'll put the other end in here for a minute and use the brush and just kind of scrub it around down in there. Try to contain most of the mess and get her cleaned up. I was talking to the guy at the machine shop, splashing my face everywhere with this, and he was saying to run a 15W40 blah 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 oil, and I said absolutely not. I do not want to run any kind of multi-vis oil in this or anything with detergent. I'm going to run probably a straight 40 weight non-detergent oil. Hopefully I know it's out there, but we definitely don't want to do anything that's going to stir dirt up in this engine. It'll just wipe out all the bearings and make a mess of it. And to rebuild one of these engines costs anywhere between $5,000 and $8,000. That exceeds the value of the car as far as its monetary value, and that's obviously not the direction we want to be going with this. So yeah, this is looking pretty good now. Pretty happy with that. So a little more sludge here. Lots and lots of cleaning to do on parts as we assemble this. Lots of years of sludge. Like I said, it was parked 75 years ago. So there we go. Okay, so I took some parts cleaner, some Eastwood paint prep, since I don't have any brake clean, and just degreased it a little bit more. It's still not perfect, but you can see how much nicer that is now. So I'll get some brake clean next time I go to town and hose these down the rest of the way. But much cleaner, much better. This old oil is something else, I'm telling you. It's like a Klingon. It just does not let go. So all right, well, I got the hands cleaned up a little bit, and I've got grease and oil and gunk on my face and glasses and everywhere, and that's normal working on an old engine like this. If you've had the experience, you know what I'm talking about. But that's another little step forward. Very small step, but again, it's prep work for, we're sliding that cam in hopefully in another week or so. So I'm pretty excited about that. One of the things that some of you asked me about in messaging and so forth is to kind of do a walk around on the car. I don't think we've done that yet on the channel. So I will do that. Maybe in the next episode we do, if we don't get the cam in right away, is we'll do a walk around on the car and talk a little bit about the history. Another thing that's going to be coming you're not going to want to miss. My dad remembers this car a little bit from when he was a kid, and he's got stories to tell. He was about 3 or 4 years old when this car was taken off the road, and I think there's pictures of him in the car somewhere, maybe. But he has got some stories to tell about the history of the car. As I mentioned, my great-grandfather bought this car brand new in 1926 at Harder Motors in Calumet, Michigan. It's been in the family its whole life. And we're just excited as a family to be getting the thing back together again, and hopefully getting it on the road in the next year, and being able to enjoy something that's been parked for 75 years. So that's exciting to us, and I hope it's exciting to you. I appreciate you bearing through the little details. I try to keep it interesting by telling you things, talking about things, my rationale, my thinking, informing you, maybe educating you. Like I said, it's not always necessarily what somebody might say is the right way. This is the way I do things. I've been doing this for over 40 years, and both antique cars, muscle cars, hot rods, you name it. Another little interesting bit of trivia that you might find interesting. This car also came from Calumet, Michigan. It was a basket case car, not wrecked, but was a basket case car. The roof was caved in from snow. The floors were rotted out. It was in really bad shape. This car was purchased brand new when that Oakland was taken off the road in 46. This is a 47, so the window of time there is pretty interesting. This was actually owned by a friend of mine. It wasn't in our family, but I purchased it from him about 10 years ago and have been rebuilding it ever since. There's a series on the channel here about this car. So you can watch that. It's either going to be here or here. I get screwed up when I'm using the video camera, so I'll put a link to it right there. There's more episodes on the Oakland. We've got the 70 Challenger project that we're doing. We're rebuilding the frame rails on the rear end of the car right now, and that car's in process of restoration. We've got the 74 Swinger that we've been doing. There's a 73 Swinger, the 69 Charger, the 68 Dart GTS, and probably going to be something coming on a 70 Duster that some of you know about. So anyway, that's pretty exciting for what we got going on. Also the 88 truck. We got a lot of cars here. We got a lot of projects. Thanks for watching the show. I appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed, take a second. Do that right now. See that little icon down here in one of these corners? If you just click that, it brings up a box. You can subscribe. When you subscribe, hit the bell so that you receive notifications about new episodes. Also, we are on Facebook /MyCarShop. We're on Instagram /MyCarShop. Thinking about doing some giveaways. A few things that I've got here around the shop people might like. Also, maybe going to give away a hat. So if you're interested, drop a comment down here if you'd like a My Car Shop hat. See those? We've got those in stock right now. If you want to buy one, they're $25 plus shipping and tax. So, all right, thanks for watching, and don't go away. Click another episode. Let me see you again right away in just a minute. Rock on.